حلقة النقاش التالية مع قناة العربية أدعو السيدة ميسون نويهد كبيرة المذيعين في قناة العربية، جنرال ديفيد بتريوس المدير السابق لوكالة الاستخبارات المركزية الأمريكية ورئيس معهد KKR العالمي، السيد نبيل فهمي وزير الخارجية المصري السابق وعميد مؤسس في الجامعة الأمريكية في القاهرة، السيد روبرت فورد السفير الأمريكي السابق لدى سوريا والجزائر والباحث في معهد الشرق الأوسط في واشنطن، دكتور تشانغ لو مدير الأكاديمية الصينية للاقتصادات الطاقة والعلوم الاجتماعية، والسيد هاني شنيب الرئيس المؤسس والمدير التنفيذي للمجلس الوطني للعلاقات الأمريكية الليبية.
صباح الخير. نحن اليوم رح تكون ندوتنا عن اقتصاديات الجغرافيا السياسية في الشرق الأوسط. طبعاً بعد الندوة اللي حضرناها هلأ من شوي كمان صار في عنا تساؤلات أكثر عن التغيرات اللي أصابت منطقة الشرق الأوسط على الصعيد السياسي والجغرافي وتأثير ذلك طبعاً على الاقتصاد. اليوم ضيوفنا رح يعطونا إلى حد ما نظرة هذه التغيرات الجيوسياسية وأيضاً التأثير الاقتصادي عليها. الصين لاعب أساسي في منطقة الشرق الأوسط مثل ما الكل صار يعرف، بالإضافة طبعاً للكثير من الدول العظمى اللي لها دور كبير جداً في الشرق الأوسط كالولايات المتحدة وروسيا والاتحاد الأوروبي. ولكن سأستغل وجود دكتور ليو معنا لنبدأ مع الصين، حيث كل الأنظار في منطقة الشرق الأوسط تتسمر عليها. مستر ليو، بالنسبة إلى الصين أين تجد هذه الفرص الاستثمارية في منطقة الشرق الأوسط خاصة بعد التغييرات التي حصلت في بعض المناطق؟ مستر ليو.
Sorry, I didn't imagine I'm the first one. So I heard many times China in this event. China is bigger than before the economy, but still I think China is a new player in this arena. So in this meeting, I still think to explain that China's style. I heard some criticism yesterday for China's roles and maybe our actions in Middle East, but I think maybe the best way to explain what China's style and China's thinking. China is a socialist country. Maybe the socialist or socialism have some different understanding in different countries, different peoples. But for us, the socialist China is, our experience is that we have a strong government. So we always rely on government to make policy decision and do nearly everything in China by government. So the style also reflected in our international relationship. In every country, we hope to have more cooperation with this country. So we always fund the government and fund the companies, and especially we think the best partner is the government. So this is not we neglect the role of other organizations such as NGOs, maybe societies. We lack to cooperate with cooperations. But if you think China should do more about these roles to help the development of the societies, to maybe think about more benefit of the local communities, Just fund the Chinese, fund the companies from China, fund the NGOs from China. It's no problem. But in Middle East, I think it's very important for China's role, for China. You know, China now is the largest consumer of energy. We import many crude oil and natural gas from these areas. It's very important to China, especially on the issue of energy security and economic security. And the Middle East countries are still the most important partner of China. So I think for economics of the geopolitical, we like to promote the cooperation with Middle East countries, especially in the framework of BRI, the Belt and Road Initiatives. Is a new idea proposed by President Xi Jinping recent years, and we hope to many projects and more cooperation in this framework. According to Chinese experience, we think the infrastructure connectivity is very important. You know, China is a big country, it's a single country. But if you look at inside China, we have bigger difference inside these countries, even bigger than in Middle East and North Africa. If you look at the eastern part of China, it's just like, for example, Shanghai is like Hong Kong, like New York, like London. But you look at the western inside China, like maybe Xinjiang, most of you know Xinjiang, it's very like Middle East or Central Asia. So there's so big difference, but we can still have a very good economic performance. We think the experience comes from the infrastructure and a strong government. So in the framework of BRI, we take the infrastructure as a very important role. We hope to help other countries to use this experience to develop more infrastructure connectivities.
طب مستر ليو، أنتم تعلمون بأنه هناك مناطق صراع في منطقة الشرق الأوسط، وهناك إعادة إعمار لمناطق الصراع قريباً إذا شاء الله وانتهت هذه الأزمة. أي منطقة عانت من الصراع عين الصين عليها؟
Sorry, I just, can you repeat the question? Okay.
تريد أن أعيد السؤال؟ نقول بأن منطقة الشرق الأوسط هي فيها الكثير من مناطق النزاع، وإذا انتهت هذه الأزمات هي بحاجة لإعادة إعمار. الصين عينها على أي دولة من هذه الدول؟ لدينا ليبيا، لدينا سوريا، لدينا اليمن، لدينا العراق.
Yes, it's a big question. This area is, yes, there are many conflicts. And for China, you know, we are the most concerned the peace progress in this region. The Syria, Yemen, and maybe other places like North Iraq, we hope the peace in this area. But what do you want China to do? Or what these peoples want China to do? Mm-hmm. I think in every country, the peace was driven by domestic forces, not by the other side, by outside forces, even America, even Russia and China. We all know the President Trump want to retreat from Syria. Even powerful like USA, they cannot solve domestic problems. So if you want to solve this problem, have a sustainable peace, you need more domestic driving forces. I mean, maybe more negotiations. Every part of these countries need to give in some part to consider more about other side benefit and their thinking. This is the most important. If you need help from China, China can help maybe by peacekeeping or some humanitarian support or some maybe infrastructure construction. There's no problem from China. But if you want Chinese army, that's impossible. Every American army, they want to go back.
مستر فورد، أيضا حضرتك لديك باع طويل في منطقة الشرق الأوسط وخاصة سوريا. بالنسبة لإعادة الإعمار مثلا في سوريا، ما هي المجالات برأيكم التي تهم الولايات المتحدة بشكل خاص الاستثمار فيها في سوريا مثلا؟
في سوريا بالذات.
نعم.
So, first, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be here this morning. I think there will be zero American investment in Syria. Zero. Why?
حتى لو حلت الأزمة بموافقة الولايات المتحدة.
There will be no investment because the American government has a series of sanctions, economic and business sanctions, on the country of Syria and on different Syrian government institutions. The sanctions are almost as severe as our sanctions against Iran. And they include financial sanctions as well as sanctions on particular sectors, such as energy. These sanctions make it impossible for American companies to do any business.
ولا أمل برفع هذه العقوبات؟
I think.
لذلك نسأل.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the reality is, the political reality in Washington is that as long as Bashar al-Assad's government is in power, the American Congress and the White House both, Republicans and Democrats, will agree to keep the sanctions. They view the Syrian government's behavior during the war as criminal, responsible for war crimes, and therefore they will not lift the sanctions.
على كل حال بالأمس الرئيس الروسي تحدث عن حكومة جديدة، فلا نعرف إذا كان سيكون الرئيس الأسد فيها ولا لا. أستاذ فهمي، بالنسبة للمنطقة العربية كما نقول بأنه الكل عيونها على هذه المنطقة، لما لهذه المنطقة من أهمية جيوسياسية بنظر العالم. هل منطقتنا العربية وخاصة الدول التي عاشت التغيير، يعني ومصر أيضاً انتقلت بسبب الثورة، انتقلت من نظام إلى نظام وما زالت مستمرة طبعاً بمؤسساتها. هل نحن مهيئين ونتأقلم مع كل هذه التغييرات الاقتصادية والعولمة الجديدة الحاصلة في العالم؟
أولاً أتقدم بالشكر للأخت العزيزة رغدة على الدعوة الكريمة للمشاركة في هذا الاجتماع الثري، والحقيقة أريد أن أثني على الجلسة التي سبقتنا مباشرة لأنها جمعت بين قضايا التكنولوجيا والشباب والإصلاح والاقتصاد. السؤال بالنسبة لحضرتك إنما هنتقل إليه على طول، بس قبل ذلك أيضاً لابد أن أشكر دولة الإمارات الشقيقة على هذه الاستضافة الكريمة والمستمرة. السؤال الحقيقة في محله، إنما هرد عليه بنقاط سريعة. أولاً المنطقة مشتعلة، إذن نحن نتعامل الآن مع اقتصاد في حالة اضطراب. هناك اضطراب قاسي في دول مثل ليبيا، سوريا، اليمن نتيجة الحروب الموجودة، وهناك اضطراب نتيجة للتغييرات اللي حصلت في بقية دول المنطقة. الاقتصاد والسياسة الجغرافية كما ذكرتي دائما مرتبطين ببعضهم. في تقديري الاستثمار الحكومي سيكون استثمار سياسي بغرض الحفاظ على الإنجازات السياسية اللي تحققت على الأرض في دول المضطربة المختلفة. الاستثمار الخاص يرتبط أساساً بالمناخ الاقتصادي المتاح في كل دولة، وطبيعة الحال كلما كان هناك استقراراً كلما توفرت ظروف أفضل لمثل هذا الاستقرار. حضرتك أشرت بالتحديد إلى مصر. الحقيقة في خطة طموحة للانتقال من مرحلة الثورات إلى مرحلة بناء مصر الجديدة، والتنمية حالياً وصلت إلى حوالي 5.6% عن العام الماضي، وإنما المشروع لسه قدامه مشروع كبير الحقيقة. ونجحنا أو فشلنا نحن أو دول عربية أخرى في ذلك سيكون مرهون في النهاية بوضع منظومة سياسية اقتصادية بمعنى إدارة الاقتصاد بما يسمح بمجتمعاتنا التفاعل لأقصى درجة وتحديداً الشباب. وفي نفس الوقت
هل هناك من استراتيجية معينة لإنجاح مثل ما تتفضل حضرتك وتحكي
هقول لحضرتك مظبوط ان هو كل دولنا وضعت خطط اقتصادية بالشكل التقليدي. الدول التي خدت خطوات إيجابية أكثر هي من ركزت على الشباب من ناحية والتكنولوجيا من ناحية أخرى، وعلى المدى الطويل على التعليم. التقدم السريع سهل، إنما التقدم المستمر يحتاج لتغيير جوهري في منظومة الإدارة، ليس بمعنى سياسة يسارية أو يمينية أو اشتراكية، إنما المستثمر يريد أن يعلم أين اتجاه الريح وما هي نسب المخاطر والمكسب.
طب هل ترى أن دولنا العربية تعطي هذه الصورة الواضحة للمستثمر؟
أعتقد أننا نسعى إلى ذلك، وإنما لن نصل إلى المستوى المطلوب بعد. لا زال المجتمع الدولي ينظر إلينا كساحة للمكسب السريع وانتهاز الفرص. لابد أن ننتقل من ساحة للأسواق إلى ساحة لإنتاج والإضافة value added للمنظومة الاقتصادية.
جنرال باتريوس، كيف يمكن للدول العظمى مثل الولايات المتحدة، الاتحاد الأوروبي، روسيا، الصين أن تقنع المواطن حيث تقع الصراعات في بلده مثل ليبيا، مثل العراق، مثل سوريا، بأن هذه الدول العظمى آتية لتستثمر ولتفيد كمواطن وليست آتية لتسيطر على مقدرات بلده؟
Sure. First of all, let me also just join in saluting Ragita and her team for a truly great day yesterday and a spectacular evening last night. I think everyone felt great actually, about those that you honored and applauded every one of them wildly. So congratulations, and also I add my thanks as well to the UAE for once again hosting this particular event. I thought I would actually start also just with a brief reflection on what is going on in Syria. I was asked yesterday by some different individuals back in the U.S. about this, the press, and I just thought I should express that I am deeply concerned that the U.S. withdrawal of forces from northeast Syria will lead to a resurgence of ISIS attacks in Syria and beyond, to Iranian and Russian exploitation of our withdrawal, to a perception of the U.S. as an unreliable partner, to substantial casualties by the partners we supported in the defeat of ISIS in Syria, and to the possibility of considerable ethnic displacement. With that, let me address the subject of this particular panel, because I think it's very important to build on what was just said, and to note that, as an example, the surge in Iraq was not just a military campaign. This was a civil military campaign. And security gains and subsequent political gains are solidified by what we're talking about on this panel. So this is crucial. You can only get to a certain level of progress before you have to again solidify the progress that has been achieved, the security foundation, then the subsequent political achievements. And that has to be done with restoration of basic services, first and foremost, reconstruction of damaged infrastructure, reestablishment of small markets and then bigger markets, essentially reestablishing entire economies of countries. And that is the concept that we need to keep in mind. It's why this particular panel is so important, because without what we're talking about right here, you cannot, again, solidify gains that have been achieved and build on them and progress. The challenge is, of course, that there is always a context in which this economic development assistance and investment are made. And that context can be shaped, as Ambassador Ford noted, by sanctions, which could literally exclude certain countries from being involved in this. The context is established by the security situation. Even for development assistance, which we've been discussing really largely here, from, say, the new U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, the DFC, as it will be termed, which has doubled the assets, say the UK's DIVID, the EU. By the way, don't forget the Japanese. We haven't mentioned them. They are huge contributors. They were the number 2, for example, in Afghanistan, and I think very close to that, probably in Iraq, despite not having forces on the ground. The IMF, the World Bank, we mentioned, again, I think China and the EU. All of these, again, that kind of investment requires, at the very least, a degree of security and a degree of political progress to move forward. We also, though, should be talking about what does it take to actually get outside investment. And as a partner in an international investment firm, a global investment firm that recently did a $2 billion investment right here in Abu Dhabi, as an example, I can tell you that the conditions necessary for that are far greater, obviously, understandably, because these are investors who are going to, at the end of the day, have to have not just security and some modicum of political progress, but actual rule of law, good governance, an opportunity to make a profit is all behind all
جنرال
of this.
بيتريوس، يعني ما تتحدث به وتتفضل به مهم جدا، ولكن لنكن واقعيين. المواطن العربي دائما لديه خوف من المؤامرة الأجنبية أو من مؤامرة الدول العظمى عليه بأنهم يأتون ليستغلوه وليقوموا أو ليحصلوا على مصالحهم ولا يهتمون بإفادته الشخصية. كيف يمكن أن تعطوه الأمان لهذا المواطن حتى يقتنع بمشاريعكم واستثماراتكم مثلا؟
Well, as always, I would encourage them just to watch what we do and not just what we say. The fact is well known that if we'd wanted Iraq's oil, we could have bought it many, many times over with what we've already spent in Iraq and continue to spend. I mean, that wasn't about resources. That was actually about much bigger issues. And again, I can tell you from the perspective of the individual who commanded at the 2, 3, and 4-star levels in Iraq and spent 4 years there, and then additional time in Central Command and CIA and all the rest of that, that we weren't, again, trying to control resources or anything at all like that. We were just trying to get them working again. And we did, by the way. One of the great advantages that Iraq had, say compared to some of the other locations, Afghanistan would be an example, is that the prospects for economic returns, if we could just get the electrical system going again, if we could just get the pipelines repaired and oil production and export going, I mean, there was a prospect for Iraq that they could achieve over $100 billion in income just from the energy sector alone if we just got it back to the state that it was before, and we did, by the way. And that money went into Iraq, not into U.S. bank accounts or anything like that. So again, watch what we do. And I would submit that to any of the citizens of those countries. I felt very deeply about the Shab al-Iraqi and the Balad al-Rafidain, the land of the two rivers. And again, we were there trying to help restore basic services, repair damage done through conflict, reestablish local governance, ultimately promote reconciliation, essentially to help the country not only put the economy back together, but actually to bring back the fabric of society together as well. And I would submit that that actually was achieved in the years of 2007 through, say, late 2011, when tragically the progress was undone by highly sectarian actions taken by leaders in Iraq.
أستاذ هاني، التحديات والصعوبات التي تواجه المنطقة العربية الآن، وخاصة بوجود هذه العولمة الهاي تك، يعني كنا تابعنا الندوة السابقة، هل نحن جاهزين لهذه العولمة؟ ماذا يجب على دولنا أو حكوماتنا أن تفعل لجذب هذا الاستثمار، إن كان الأمريكي أو الصيني أو الأوروبي؟
Right. So,
وخاصة في المناطق الصراع، يعني حضرتك من ليبيا وتعلم بأن الصراع أيضا على أشده، كيف يمكن لهذه الدول فيها صراع وأن تجتذب الاستثمار؟
So investments in the Arab world take two patterns. And in the process of making the investment, they have to deal with two types of governments, either strong, dominant governments, or what I call transitional governments in conflict areas, such as in Libya, Yemen, and so forth. The problem that exists today is mostly in the way the governments design the vision of what will happen in the 2020s. Most of the decisions are today reactive and in that way transitional as well. For example, when you look at Chinese-Russian involvement in conflict areas or conflict states like Libya, we know very well that nobody in the scene today in Libya is possibly going to exist 2 or 3 years from now. I'm talking about governance. Those are all transitional figures. And yet, when you see the Chinese and the Russians, they will come in and ask the question which Dr. Liu said, what can we do to help? Most of the time, the response is a sort of a reactive response. We need a hospital, we need this, and they actually respond to it and say, yes, of course, we'll come in and build a hospital for you. But when you look at the whole picture, it does not address two things. Number one is, how does it fit in the overall planning of this country? Are we putting a hospital in the middle of nowhere where it doesn't fit into a model of roads, water supplies, electricity, and so on? Or are you just throwing another white elephant that is $200 million and basically have to swallow a certain debt? It doesn't matter how low the interest rate is. But the reality is, you're leaving prints that are not necessarily positive and conducive to the development of the country at a long term. When you look at the strong governments that exist in the Arab world today, it still buys into the idea of الولد لازال في جلابية أبوه, whereby we make the decisions for the young generation. We will tell you how your future looks like, and here is a plan. So there is no effort to change the process of governance with recognition of what the new generation needs and how responsive and how desperately it needs to integrate technology into what they see in there. So the models of government have to change before you even start thinking about how you implement economic policies. So I hope I've answered part of this to you.
دكتور ليو، إلى أي حد ما يجري الآن من تغييرات في هذه المنطقة تشجعكم على الاستثمار فيها؟ يعني ما هي آمالكم تجاه هذه المنطقة؟
Okay, so thank you for the question. I never been in Libya before, but I know there are many Chinese business there. So you can see even the most conflicting areas are Chinese business. When Libya, Iraq, just after the war, Zhejiang province, the Zhejiang businessmen will go there. They found the opportunities of the commerce. Maybe they can start the supermarket. They will transport the commodities from China to these countries and found their supermarket, their service business. So I think for Chinese businessmen, especially the private small companies, the peace is enough. If we have a better governance, it's better. So, but for bigger projects like oil pipeline, water supply, they need more maybe beneficiary or maybe better conditions. Especially they need a long-term expectation of peace and the sustainability of the governments. So we hope this area can recover quickly. That will be more convenient for Chinese private companies to enter these markets. And if you can recover better to have a sustainable government, I think every Chinese company would like to go. Thank you.
أستاذ نبيل لديك مداخلة تفضل.
مداخلة سريعة. أول شيء هناك بالفعل كما ذكرتي شعور أحيانا في المنطقة إنه الغريب يتآمر علينا، وهناك في تدخلات الأجانب في مصر البعض يتدخل بأغراض سوية والبعض الآخر له أغراض غير مشروعة. بصرف النظر يجب على المجتمعات العربية والشرق الأوسطية أن تعلم جيدا أن الصديق أو المستثمر ينتقل إلى المنطقة بغرض المكسب.
صحيح.
كان مكسب مادي، كان مكسب سياسي، لابد يكون له مصلحة لأنه له أولويات أخرى وخيارات أخرى خارج تلك المنطقة. هذه أول شيء. إذن وجود الغريب حباً في التصرف السليم
يعني يمكن هنا تقع المسؤولية على الحكومة، يعني الغريب يريد مصلحته ولكن أيضاً الحكومة يجب أن تعطي حقوق لهؤلاء المواطنين حتى لا يشعروا بأن الغريب هو الذي أتى وسيطر على مقدراته.
هذا يجب يكون واقعيين في دعوة الغريب، فهو حاضر بسبب مشروع إنما في النهاية له مصلحة في ذلك. إنما أفضل وسيلة لإيجاد المعادلة السليمة بين المؤامرة ومقاطعة الغريب كلية هو بناء الذات والاستثمار أولاً وأخيراً في الشباب والتكنولوجيا والتعليم.
جنرال باتريوس، وصول الشباب بعد الثورات العربية ومحاولتهم أو محاولة إدخالهم إلى اللعبة السياسية في منطقة الشرق الأوسط، هل تشجع على الاستثمار بهؤلاء الشباب؟
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, but I don't think you should restrict it solely to that. Again, if you're in a post-conflict situation, the most important investment you might make would be to reestablish the water service or the electrical grid or rebuild the bridges. You'll recall in Iraq, for example, most of the bridges in northern and western Iraq were blown up. So yes, I want to invest in children, I want to invest in the future, but that's not going to work all that well if you don't have a bridge to get from here to there or, again, basic services restored. So there's a little bit of a hierarchy, I think. Again, schools, medical clinics, all the rest of that has its place, but you've got to do some basic restoration of services and infrastructure before you can even get to that. But certainly, absolutely, you would want to, and again, there is a comprehensive approach that you should take to this. It's not an either or. It has to be somewhat of all of the above, and certainly you have to decide where to put the marginal dollar or renminbi or or pound, but I think there's a good process for
دكتورة
that.
راغدة، هل لدينا دقيقتين بعد أم انتهى وقتنا؟
You have 5 minutes and 36 seconds, it says.
Okay. 5 minutes. مستر فورد، أهمية وجود الشباب الآن في السياسة العربية، هل سيختلف التعاطي معهم من الطبقة السياسية بعدها حالياً موجودة وأيضاً الطبقة السياسية التي تم التعامل معها سابقاً، خاصة في مجال الاستثمارات والمشاريع والاقتصاد، لأن العقلية تختلف بين جيل وجيل.
Yeah. In Algeria now, there are protests against the Algerian army, and there are also young people protesting legislation about hydrocarbons, about oil and gas. And Algeria really is in a period where young people are expressing peacefully, demands for a much better future. It appears that the old political generation in Algeria has lost much of its influence. Will this be good for investment in Algeria? It's too early to know. It's too early to know because the government is a transition government. We have to see. You asked before, I thought, a very good question. How do you convince these young people that foreign investment is good? I think there are 3 things that are important. Number 1, there needs to be transparency about the contracts that the foreign companies have in the country. If it is secret, of course people will expect a conspiracy. It's the same in America. So the companies need to be transparent in coordination with their business partners and governments in the region. That's first. Number 2, they need to show that their contracts are delivering new services or new products to the population. I was in Iraq 2 weeks ago. Baghdad still is only getting 8 hours of government electricity every day. It's better than before, but it's only 8 hours a day. And it's hot in Baghdad in the summer. So Minister Louis Khatib is trying to get foreign investment in his electricity sector. Easy to understand. If the foreign companies come, after 2 years, after 3 years, will there be more electricity or not? If there is not, of course Iraqis will say, there's a problem with the contracts, there's something wrong. It's easy to understand. Third point, in my experience, many times in places like Bahrain, Algeria, Iraq, the young people were happy to work for the foreign companies. Why? Because they got training that was at a world level. And they like the training because then they have a better economic future for themselves and their families. They like that, and they like the experience of working in a diverse cultural situation with people from many countries. So the foreign companies need to show these advantages: transparency, delivering services and products, and training their workforce. And that's how you will convince the younger people that, in fact, globalization is not all bad.
لنسأل أستاذ هاني، هل هذه النقاط الثلاثة موجودة؟ وماذا أيضاً بالمقابل، هل هناك شفافية من قبل الحكومات العربية تجاه هذه النقطة؟
It's a very good question. Everybody aspires to transparency. The question is, how do you do it?
Yeah.
And how do you implement it?
Yeah.
You have a disfranchised 75% of the population, youth, that are angry. They've actually gone through wars, they've gone through conflicts. 50 years of oil and gas did zero to this population. They're waking up after it and saying, what did we get out of this oil and gas? So you need to get them integrated into a process of governance where when you start talking about transparency, you're asking them what is the transparency looking like rather than you're asking them how your father and your uncle and so on, another older generation is going to conduct itself and so on. So unless you engage them in that process, you're just going to be repeating yourself again and again and again, and you're going to have sessions like this, and everybody outside the room of the youth is going to say, oh, another group of elites just sat together and proposed to us ideas and so on that are not applicable. So we've got to really start engaging the youth in a very different way.
شكراً لكم على الوقت بالضبط التزمنا. انتهت هذه الندوة. نأمل أنه تكونوا أخذتوا فكرة عامة عن هذا التزاوج بين الجيوسياسة والاقتصاد. شكراً للضيوف الكرام وشكراً لكم.